Now look, I'm not South African. Full disclosure, I'm not South African. I don't live there. I am a complete outsider, fully acknowledged. But I understand how the West works. I understand how the owners and controllers of global financialized capital work. I understand power dynamics. I understand strategy. So yes, I'm an outsider looking in terms of South Africa. But from this point, it's easy for me to recognize the things that I do know about. When I see it in South Africa, like, it's easy for me to recognize the patterns. Patterns that are not unique to South Africa, but are unique to the people that I know about. You understand me? I'm telling you, this arson was committed by suspects I'm familiar with. You see what I'm talking about? I recognize their MO. So then you have, from 2022 onward, the United States of America has applied escalating pressure on South Africa. It started with the Ukraine issue. South Africa abstained from the UN vote condemning Russia's invasion. That made America angry, not because they really care about that issue, but because it exposes or it reveals some degree of autonomy. So then they came out with these Lady R accusations, where the U.S. ambassador publicly accused South Africa of supplying weapons to Russia through a ship that was docked at a South African naval base. This was proved to be completely unfounded. There's no evidence to support this, but it didn't matter. The accusation served its purpose. The United States was able to show South Africa, we're not pleased with you acting independently. And then South Africa hosted the BRICS summit in 2023, and Putin was invited. Washington went ballistic. Congressional pressure to remove South Africa from AGOA, that's the trade deal that gives South African goods, gives them duty-free access to U.S. Domestic markets. That's worth billions of dollars annually. There was bipartisan support for that, putting pressure on South Africa from both sides. Because of what? Because of them acting independently and with autonomy. And then you have, of course, everyone knows, South Africa filed the genocide case. They filed the genocide case against Israel at the ICJ. That was December 2023. Over 200 U.S. Congress members, bipartisan, immediately condemned it. Israel's foreign minister lobbied Washington to put sanctions on South Africa unless South Africa withdrew the case. Then in February 2025, a few months after they started the ICJ case, Trump signed an executive order that halted U.S. foreign aid to South Africa completely. They accused South Africa of a government-sponsored race-based discrimination against those poor white Afrikaners who own all the land. And it directed the U.S. to develop a plan to resettle those poor Afrikaner refugees in America. They cited the Expropriation Act, a land reform bill, as evidence of property confiscation. And they cited the ICJ genocide case as evidence that South Africa has anti-Western foreign policy. And they terminated $440 million in PEPFAR assistance, which is AIDS prevention programs, to keep millions of South Africans alive by helping provide them with AIDS medication. Now, if you don't understand that all of these actions are directly related to your anti-immigrant, anti-migrant, anti-African campaign in South Africa, the xenophobia campaign, then you are intellectually blind. This is all connected. It's all part of the same program. The language of the Trump's executive order is verbatim AfriForum lobbying language. Word for word. Same framing, same narrative, same false claims. Because AfriForum has been putting that language directly into the ears of Republicans, Republican senators, Republican congresspeople, and Trump advisors for years. And then South Africa's ambassador to the United States, Ibrahim Rasool, one of the country's most distinguished diplomats, he was an anti-apartheid activist from back in the day, a Muslim South African who spent time in prison under apartheid for his political activism, got expelled from the United States, persona non grata, sent home. So you see, this has all been going on for quite some time. You have to understand the strategic logic that's behind all of this external pressure. You might think that it's just to punish South Africa, to make it pay for their BRICS membership, for the ICJ case, for their non-alignment and so forth. But that's too simple. The actual effect of the pressure is to increase the DA's leverage inside the government. Think about it. The ANC is in a coalition government now with the Democratic Alliance. The ANC believes, and everyone believes, that South Africa cannot afford to be removed from AGOA, that trade agreement, that trade deal, because they think the U.S. market matters. The PEPFAR programs keep people alive. They believe that Western foreign investment matters. They believe that international credit ratings agencies matter, what the credit agencies say about them. They think it matters. And all of those things are threatened. All of those things are put at risk by that Western pressure and by Washington's disapproval or displeasure. And then the DA positions itself as the party that has the best relationship with the West, with Washington, the party that Western investors trust. This is what they say about themselves. They say they're the party that can restore normal relations. So then you have the ANC, which is already weakened because they lost the majority. They already lost the majority. So they need that positioning. They think they need the DA in the coalition to signal credibility to Western financial institutions, which they're still fixated upon. Which means they need to accommodate the DA, or so they think. They think they need to accommodate the DA, which means that they cannot push back on immigration, Schreiber's immigration agenda, which means that the deportations will continue, which means that the xenophobia campaign essentially gets state backing. And all of this was achieved through all of the mechanisms that I've talked about. Because the ANC is effectively trapped. I think it's mostly they're mentally trapped. But they think if they fight the DA on immigration, then they risk collapsing the coalition, which means risking that the Western pressure is going to get worse, which means risking that AGOA is going to be rescinded, which means risking that whatever is left of the economy is going to crumble. That's the thinking. I don't personally believe that they're correct in this evaluation, but I think that's the evaluation that they're working from. So you understand, the external pressure protects the DA's position inside the government and amplifies their power and their leverage inside the government. The DA's position inside the government converts the xenophobia campaign into state policy. And then state policy does the damage on the ground. And the damage on the ground is that South Africa's relationships now with their African neighbors collapses. And it collapses precisely at the moment when South Africa absolutely needs continental solidarity as an alternative to Western economic dependence. And it's that Western economic dependence that they have between their eyes, which makes them think that they need the West, and in their pursuit of placating and appeasing the West, they're doing that because they think they don't have any alternative to the West. But by the fact that they are appeasing the West and placating to the West and kowtowing to the West and letting the West infiltrate their government, they're letting the West now alienate them from the real alternatives to the West that are available to them. By trying to preserve a relationship that, in my opinion, they don't need, they are losing the relationships that they do need. You understand me? At exactly the moment when they need it the most. And that's the whole objective, in my opinion. To me, it's quite transparent.